Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1111 or .NET Framework with Web Databases class, I've decided to do a series of video presentations based on the book we're going to use for this class for the fall 2019 semester. The book, as shown here on screen, is ProASP.NET MVC 5, an A-Press text by Adam Freeman. We're up to where we're going to start Chapter 27, all right, on single page, Web API and single page applications. Previously, I just went through a very short 5 or 6 minute thing on what a SPA or single page application is. But now it is time to actually jump into the chapter. So that's what I'm going to do here. All right. So in this chapter, as the author says, he describes the Web API feature, a relatively new addition that allows you to quickly and easily create web services. We'll have to talk about what those are as well. All right. The Web API feature is based on the same foundation as the MVC framework apps, but it's not part of the MVC framework. Rather, Microsoft has taken key classes and characteristics associated with system.web.mvc and duplicated them in system.web.http. All right. The idea is that Web API is part of the core ASP.NET platform and can be used with other types of web apps or standalone. The author has included Web API in this book because one of the main uses for it is to create a SPA or single page application by combining Web API with MVC framework features that we've used in earlier chapters. As he says here, this is not to take away from the way that Web API can simplify creating web services. It's a huge improvement over other Microsoft ways of doing so. So, notice there's not a lot of stuff in here in the summary, although the chapter is 30 pages long. And the author says we'll start by creating a regular MVC framework app like we've been doing, and then we'll use the Web API to transform it into a single page app. This is a surprisingly simple example, so we've treated the process like an extended example and applied some of the relative techniques from earlier chapters. And I agree with him. You can never have enough examples. All right? So, the term single page application or SPA, as mentioned here on the bottom of page 755, is a broadly applied term. The most consistently used definition is a web app whose initial content is delivered as a combination of HTML and JavaScript, and whose subsequent operations are performed using a RESTful or web service that delivers data via JSON in response to AJAX requests. This differs from the kind of app we've been building so far, where operations performed by the user result in new HTML documents generated in response to synchronous HTTP requests, which the author refers to as round-trip applications. All right? Now, like I said, my goal in here is to take this chapter slowly. And as I do, good, bad, or indifferent, mix in some of my own explanations, stories, whatever. All right? I was working at a technical college in Janesville, Wisconsin. A technical college is Blackhawk Technical College. And I was working there on September 11th, 2001, when one of my students came in and said, "Did you guys hear what happened?" Well, we were working in class, so no, we had not. And he said, a plane just ran into one of the Twin Towers in New York. Well, immediately what we did was we started to look. The internet was good then, but not nearly as refined as it is right now. We started to look on our machines. Plus, at Blackhawk, they had a series of televisions outside, and we looked there. We started to follow it. All right? The reason I'm telling you this is the way I look at a RESTful application is REST basically delivers your information to you in real time. So if I had been following the 9/11 stuff in real time, as reports came in, I'd be getting them streamed to my screen. Okay? Like I said, that's the way I look at it. I may not be correct or totally correct, but that's kind of my take on it. So the advantages, as mentioned here on page 756, the advantages of SPA are less bandwidth is required, and the user receives a smoother experience. The disadvantages are the smoother experience will take more work and be more complex. So most applications mix and match SPA with RTA, where each functional area is delivered as a SPA and navigation between areas are more RTA, for lack of better words. So for this chapter, the author says we're going to prepare a new ASP.NET project called Web Services. This new project is going to use an empty template. All right? Nothing new there. But if you look after that, what the author says next will have references to both MVC and Web API. All right, again, that's not how we do ours, but you get the idea. So let's come through here. All right, create a new project. It'll be this. Next, it'll be on our desktop. It's called Web Services, but we're going to have our solution named Chapter 27. Pretty much the way we've been doing things. Create. It'll be empty, and we'll want both MVC and Web API folders. Okay? So, create. It'll do its thing. And if we go in and look, right now, as far as I can tell, looks pretty similar to what we've been creating. All right, app start. We have now a Web API config, which we didn't have before. All right. But other than that, it doesn't look very different from what we've been doing thus far. All right, so we will use this project to create a regular MVC framework and then use the Web API to create a web service. Once the web service is complete, we'll return to the MVC framework app and make it into a SPA. This application will create and maintain a series of reservations. Notice, the author says, let's keep this simple, all right? So we can focus on what's going on, because there's a lot of new stuff in here. So the reservations consist of just someone's name and a location. So the first thing we want to do is go to the models folder and add a reservation.cs class. And in that reservations.cs class, we'll put this in there. So we're creating what? A reservation model that has an ID, a client name, and a location. Again, we don't care about the client name being one name or multiple names. None of that stuff really matters for what we're doing. All right, so there's our start. Like I said, if this seems really slow, that's just the way it's going to be. I'm going to create a simple in-memory collection of reservation objects to act as a model repository. I don't want to go to the trouble of setting a database up, but we do need to perform create, read, update, and delete operations on a collection of objects. So we're going to add a class called Reservation Repository.cs to the models folder. It might have been even less work to actually create the database, but the author did it. The author did it the way the author did it. All right, so in here are the contents, and they're on pages 757 and 758. So as always, let me make this a little smaller. Copy. There's the first part. Here's the second part. All right, I see no errors. That's always a good thing. Let's move this stuff over a bit. Again, I'm doing a little work on the outset here, but hopefully it will help me as I go on. So if you look through here, you can see the basic CRUD functionality. All right, we are creating this reservation repository right here. Move that over so we can see everything. All right. We've got a get here to return that repository. We've got a list in here where we're creating it basically. You can see we have 3 reservations, the names, and the locations. I'm not worried about it all, what that stuff is. Okay. We've got a get all to return all our data. Okay. This will return data as long as there's something to return. Here's where we can add items, remove items, update items, etc. All right. So the author says on here, make this a little bigger. The repository class has an initial list of 3 reservation objects and defines methods to allow the CRUD operations to take place. As there is no persistent storage, any changes that are made will be lost when the app is either stopped or restarted. But as the author said, this example is all about the way in which content is delivered and not how it's stored. All right? To ensure that there is some persistence between requests, I have created a static instance accessible through a property called current. All right, next, we're going to rely on 3 NuGet packages in this chapter. 2 of them we've dealt with extensively in the book. Adding jQuery, adding Bootstrap. The one that's new in here is Knockout. All right. Knockout, they mention right there, is a library Microsoft has adopted for SPA applications. All right. If you want to learn more, you can go to knockoutjs.com. The author says he'll explain how Knockout works later in the chapter, but for now, we need to install all 3 of these. All right, so let's come in here. As always, Tools, NuGet Package Manager Console, and save. Okay. So there's all 3. Again, I saw nothing but gray, which is good. There's jQuery, so that's there. There's Bootstrap, so that's there. There's Knockout.js, so that's there. Again, there are later versions of this but to keep in accord with the book, etc., I'm using what they use in the book. All right? All right, I'm at 15.5 minutes. We're on page 759, and we're going to go in next to adding the controller. We'll do that in the next lecture.